in advanced level, and it's a question where a student sends on WhatsApp. Say, I'm very confused each time they ask a question concerning economic factor being responsible for the outbreak of the scramble for Africa. Today I'm going to be clarifying here. They say, to what extent were economic considerations responsible for the scramble, for European scramble for Africa? I'm going to explain to you. Each time you see a question of to what extent, you should know it's a two-part question. Anytime you see a question of how far, account for and discuss, you should have it at the back of your mind that is a two-part question. So this question says, to what extent were economic considerations responsible for European scramble for Africa? Now, you already know it's a two-part question. The first part of this question is economic reasons for the scramble, and the second part is the other reason. Under the other reason, you explain the political and the social reason. How do you start this question? How do you introduce it? You define the scramble. The scramble refers to the mad rush by European powers, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Portuguese, Spain, and Belgium. This was due to economic, political, and social reasons. The scramble started in 1879 when King Leopold of Belgium sent his explorer H.M. Stanley to acquire territories in the Congo Basin and sign treaties with the kings and chiefs of the Congo Basin. As a result of that, other European powers needed to come to Africa. How did now economic factor consider? Now, after you have defined, you see the paragraph below is going to examine the extent to which economic factors were responsible for the scramble for Africa and other factors. Now, how do you start with your economic reasons? You say, as a result of the Industrial Revolution, work that was done by hand was now done by machine. European powers needed raw materials to proceed them in their industry. For that reason, they needed to come to Africa to search for this raw material. Thus, they scrambled for Africa. Secondly, we talk about market. As a result of the Industrial Revolution, work that was done by hand was now done by machine. European powers have produced so many goods, so they needed markets where they could sell their raw materials. Thus, they came to scramble for Africa in order to sell this product. Job opportunity. As a result of the Industrial Revolution, work that was done by hand was now done by machine. Many European powers were unemployed in Europe. So as a result, they needed areas where they could look for jobs and employ their unemployed population. Thus, they saw Africa as a fertile land where they could go and gain employment opportunities. Thus, they scrambled for Africa. Next, we talk about fertile land. Fertile land was also needed in order to open things like plantation where they could extract these raw materials to European industry to produce them. Thus, they needed to come to Africa in order to search for fertile land to open plantation agriculture, to open plantation. Thus, they scrambled for Africa. Next, we talk about investment of surplus capital. As a result of the Industrial Revolution, work that was done by hand was not done by machine. European powers needed to sell their European goods. When they sold these goods, what happened? They had enough money and they needed a land where they could invest this money that are made from their business. Thus, they came to scramble for Africa in order to invest their surplus capital. And lastly, in the economic domain, they needed to protect their business. Most of them had open trade, especially Britain, for example, who opened trade along the Delta Niger state. For this reason, he came to scramble for Africa in order to do what, to protect his interests along the Delta Niger. Thus, scramble for Africa. Now, when you have explained to that extent, you go now to the next. You are going now, you put up a paragraph. You see, there were not only economic reasons that were responsible for the outbreak of the scramble for Africa. There were as well political and social reasons. Now you start. The spread of European civilization and culture. European powers believed that their culture and civilization was the best. So they needed areas where they could bring up their cultures and civilization. Thus they came to scramble for Africa in order to spread their culture and civilization. Prestige was a political reason why they scrambled for Africa. Now, European powers needed prestige. That is, in Europe, it was believed that the more territories you have, the more prestigious you become. So, as a result of prestige, European powers needed to scramble for Africa to become more prestigious in Europe. The role of Berlin West African Conference. The role of Berlin West African Conference also influenced the scramble for Africa. Now, the Berlin West African Conference, in some of its principles, that stated it made the scramble for Africa, and it made European powers to come to Africa to scramble for Africa. And we also talk about the abolition of slavery and slave trade. It was a social factor. This social factor helped to carry the European powers from Europe to Africa. This was as a result of the external form of slavery and slave trade. They saw that slavery and slave trade was unprofitable, legitimate trade was the best, and they came to Africa in order to do what? To abolish slavery and slave trade, which was first of all an internal factor before the external factor of slave trade. And the activities of King Leopold II was another political reason that influenced the scramble for Africa. The activities of King Leopold II activities along the Congo Delta state, the Congo state influenced the scramble for Africa. This was because he sent his explorer H.M. Stanley to the Congo Basin to sign treaties with the kings and chiefs. So as a result of that, what? The scramble for Africa. And last political factor, we'll talk about the collapse of what? Of strong African kingdoms or strong African empires. You know, as a result, at first, before the Europe never came to scramble for Africa because of these strong African empires. We have the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire, the Kanem-Borno Empire. So as a result of these strong African empires, European powers could not come and scramble for Africa. But when these African kingdoms and empires collapsed, European powers had the opportunity to scramble for Africa. Thank you viewers for watching this video on Benjamin Academics Battle on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Facebook we are Benjamin Academics. Please don't forget to like our video, subscribe, and to get more notification each time there's a video, and comment in the comment box for us to see what